It took Fender 70 years to build the most beloved name in the history of the electric guitar. 70 years of players saving up for their first one, of fathers handing them down to their sons, of the most famous hands in music reaching for that same curved body on the biggest stages on Earth. A legend like that is the slowest thing a company can ever build, because it is not made of wood and wire. It is made of trust. And it took Fender 6 months to set the whole thing on fire. Not a bad decade. Not a slow decline. 6 months. From the first quiet court ruling to the biggest retailer on the planet dragging them into court. While players who worshipped this brand their entire lives started taping over the logo on their own headstocks. I have covered every battle of this war as it happened. But tonight, I want to step back and show you the whole picture at once, because seen from above, this is not a legal story anymore. It is the fastest self-destruction of a beloved brand that this industry has ever witnessed. And it is still happening right now. Here's the short version, if you are just catching up. Late last year, Fender won a quiet court ruling in Germany over the Stratocaster body shape, and then spent this spring using it to send legal threats across the entire guitar world, from tiny workshops all the way up to PRS and John Mayer's Silver Sky. The backlash has been biblical, and to understand just how much is burning, you first have to understand what took 70 years to build. Before we go back to the beginning, do yourself one quick favor and hit that subscribe button. This is the channel that has been tracking this collapse from the very first letter, and the story is nowhere near over. Now, let us start where the legend starts. It starts with a radio repairman. In the years after the war, in a small shop in Fullerton, California, a quiet tinkerer named Lee O. Fender, a man who famously never even learned to play the guitar, started building instruments for the working musicians who came through his door. And in the mid-50s, he released the guitar that changed everything, the Stratocaster. Curved where every other guitar was flat. Light where they were heavy. Built to be fixed with a screwdriver instead of mourned in a repair shop. But here's the thing you have to understand about what happened next, because it is the whole point of this story. Fender the company did not build the legend. The players did. The legend was built the night Buddy Holly stood on national television with a Stratocaster over his shoulder, when most of the country had never seen anything like it. It was built the morning Jimi Hendrix set fire to the sky at Woodstock, with one in his hands. It was built by Eric Clapton, piecing together his beloved Blackie, by David Gilmour, making a black Stratocaster sound like the inside of the human soul, by Stevie Ray Vaughan, playing his battered number one until the paint gave up. Piece by piece, decade by decade, that shape stopped belonging to a catalog and started belonging to the culture. That is what the name on the headstock actually meant. Not a product, a promise. 70 years of it. And that promise was worth real money, which is the part people forget when they talk about legends. Think about what the name actually did in the real world. It let a nervous parent walk into a shop knowing nothing about guitars and walk out with the right one, because the name was the guarantee. It made a beaten up instrument from the 60s worth more than a brand new one, because the name carried its value across generations like a family house. It meant a working musician could sell his Fender in any city on earth in an afternoon at a fair price, because everyone everywhere agreed on what that name was worth. Economists have a dry little phrase for this. They call it brand equity. But what it really is 70 years of kept promises, compounding like interest. Every good guitar that left the factory made the name worth slightly more. Every legend who played one added another layer. it is the slowest fortune a company can build, and it is the only kind of fortune that cannot be bought, borrowed, or rebuilt in a hurry. Hold that thought, because that fortune is exactly what is on fire. And if you want proof of just how deep that love ran, look at the era nobody at Fender likes to talk about. Because here is the part almost nobody puts together. Fender already died once. In the mid-60s, Leo sold the company to a giant broadcasting corporation. And over the next 2 decades, the suits ran the quality straight into the ground. Ask any collector why the words pre-CBS make a vintage Fender worth a fortune, and they will tell you plainly. Because everyone knows what happened after. Corners were cut. Standards slid. For 20 years, the guitars simply got worse. And here is the miracle. The players forgave it. They grumbled. They hunted for the good years. They paid extra for the old ones. But they never stopped loving the name. Because the love was never really about the specs. It was about identity. And when that corporate owner finally won it out in the mid-80s, it was not some rescue fund that saved Fender. It was Fender's own people. A group of its employees and managers scraped the money together, bought their own company back, and spent years rebuilding it guitar by guitar. Guitar people saved Fender. Remember that line? Because this entire story ends with it. If this is landing for you, take 1 second to subscribe and turn on the bell. This channel follows the money and the history the big brands would rather you never trace. No sponsorships, no protected reputations. Now, hold all 70 of those years in your mind and watch how fast the fire spreads. December. A courtroom in Germany. Fender wins a copyright ruling over the Stratocaster shape against a Chinese seller who never even shows up to defend itself. Almost nobody notices. It looks like paperwork. It was the match. Spring. The letters start. Legal threats, by the dozen, landing in the mailboxes of guitar builders across Europe and beyond. And not gentle ones. The first wave reportedly demanded that builders destroy existing inventory. Think about that. The company whose entire legal argument is that this body shape is a work of art was demanding that the art be smashed. The letters reached tiny family workshops, the kind of places with fewer employees than a food truck, builders who would need to fundraise just to afford a lawyer. Then the letters climbed the ladder. PRS, the Silver Sky, John Mayer's guitar, aimed at directly. The story explodes from an industry whisper into the loudest scandal in the guitar world. Then, the leaked speech. Fender's own chief executive, in a room full of dealers, reading carefully from a laptop, trying to calm the fire, and instead pouring gasoline on it, contradicting his own company's case on camera. Then, the defections. Some of the biggest guitar channels on the internet publicly cut ties with the brand. Players start posting photos of tape over the logo on their headstocks. Stores report customers walking in angry, walking out with the rival guitar instead. And then, the hammer. The largest musical instrument retailer on earth, a company that had sold Fender guitars faithfully for 70 years, a partner older than almost anyone working at Fender today, files a lawsuit to drag the whole campaign into open court. And somewhere in the middle of all this, the credit agencies quietly push Fender's debt rating deeper into junk territory, with the company burning cash while it burns goodwill. December to June, 6 months. That is the entire timeline. 70 years to build the most trusted name in the instrument. 6 months to make it radioactive. Now here's the question that actually matters, and it is the reason I told you about the dark corporate era first. Fender has survived worse products than this. It survived 20 years of declining quality, and came out the other side, still beloved. So why is this different? Why did 2 decades of mediocre guitars barely dent the legend, while 6 months of letters have players who own 5 Fenders swearing they will never buy a 6th? And here is my answer, and I will say plainly that it is my reading of it. Bad guitars insult your ears. Lawsuits insult your loyalty. When the quality slipped, players could tell themselves the company had lost its way, but not its soul. That somewhere in there, the old Fender was still trying to get out. But this campaign is not a lapse in craftsmanship. It is a choice, made in meetings, signed off by executives, aimed at the very community that spent 70 years building the legend for free. The players made that shape famous. The players made it a culture. And the company's answer, 70 years later, was to claim the culture as private property and send lawyers after anyone who dared to build on it. You can forgive a company for making a bad guitar. It is very, very hard to forgive a company for suing your heroes. And that is what makes these 6 months so uniquely devastating. Look at the scoreboard, at everything that 70 years bought, and where each piece stands tonight. The most famous player of the instrument, the man who once had his own Fender signature line, now sells the rival guitar they are trying to erase, and stays pointedly silent. The biggest retail partner the brand ever had is now the plaintiff dragging it into court. The loudest voices that used to celebrate every new Fender release now open their videos with updates on the scandal. The finances are junk-rated and bleeding. And the name itself, the crown jewel, the thing 70 years of players built together, now triggers one association before any other. Not a solo, not a song, a stack of legal letters. That is what 6 months can do to 70 years. And notice the cruelest detail in the whole picture. Fender's rivals have not had to lift a finger. Nobody ran an attack ad. Nobody launched a smear campaign. The other guitar companies have simply stood quietly to the side, saying nothing, selling guitars, while Fender does their marketing for them. Every new letter, every leaked meeting, every angry headline sends another wave of players walking into stores asking, almost on principle, what else is good? That is the terrifying mechanics of a self-inflicted wound. When a rival attacks you, your community rallies around you. When you attack your community, there is nobody left to rally. Fender spent 70 years building an army of defenders, the kind of loyalists who would argue about it in comment sections at 2 a.m, for free, out of pure love. 6 months of this campaign did not just quiet that army. It turned a frightening amount of it around and pointed it the other way. Now, in fairness, because this channel always insists on it, and the fairness here genuinely matters, Fender still builds beautiful guitars, and none of this erases what the company created. It did design the Stratocaster, and a company has a real, legitimate interest in defending its most famous design from outright copies. The people working its factory floors did nothing wrong and deserve none of this. And history itself offers Fender a defense. Because as we said, this brand has come back from the dead once before. The legend is on fire, but it is not ash yet. A company that changed course tomorrow, dropped the campaign, made peace with its builders and its players, could still save an enormous amount of what remains. Brands have survived worse. This exact brand has survived worse. But here's the bottom line, and it is the sentence this whole story has been building toward. In 70 years, nobody ever managed to seriously hurt Fender. Not the copycats, not the cheap imports, not the rival brands, not the corporate owners who ran the quality into the ground, not even the decades when the guitars themselves were the worst they had ever been. Every enemy, every threat, every dark chapter, and the legend only grew because the people who loved it refused to let it die. Which means the one thing 70 years proved beyond all doubt is that no one on Earth could destroy Fender from the outside. Only Fender could do this. And in 6 short months, it very nearly has. The last time this company was dying, it was saved by guitar people who loved it enough to buy it back. The question hanging over everything tonight is whether there is anyone like that left in the building. So now I want to hear from you. Can Fender still save the legend? Or has something broken in these 6 months that 70 more years will not fix? And what would it actually take for you, personally, to forgive them? And before you go, if this put the whole war into focus for you, hit that subscribe button and stick around, because this story is still being written, and you are going to want to be here for whatever comes next. Then drop a comment and tell me exactly where you stand. I read every single one.